Fuck around, make my 40 pop.
Alright guys, today's episode is definitely a very good episode. It's like the past 2 weeks has been like definitely elite episodes, very well rounded episodes. In this episode right here, the biggest thing was Kawaki meeting Kurama, but the first thing that I do want to talk about is Sasuke entering an Otsutsuki dimension. Now this right here, when it came out on the Boruto manga, was absolutely insane, took a lot of people off guard. I'm pretty sure for the anime onlys, in this particular situation too, it did that exact same thing for you guys as well. Sasuke enters the Otsutsuki dimension. We don't really know what we're going to find. Sasuke is literally on a mystery mission itself, but it turns out that Sasuke stumbles upon some Otsutsuki stone faces. Now this right here wasn't necessarily detailed in this episode, it's probably going to be detailed in the next episode, but I'm going to explain a little bit mainly because we did see it in this episode. But I do want to warn you guys, we didn't necessarily hear about this in the Boruto anime. Now the Otsutsuki stone faces actually do replicate some Otsutsuki members that we did see before in the past. The two on the left represent Momoshiki and Kinshiki. They represent them mainly because they match the horns that Momoshiki and Kinshiki also had. Now I'm not necessarily sure exactly what this means. This right here could possibly mean that Momoshiki and Kinshiki had some relationship to Ishiki, Otsutsuki, and Kage. We have absolutely no idea. But speaking of Ishiki, Otsutsuki, and Kage, to the right, those stone faces right there are Ishiki, Otsutsuki, and Kage as well. We don't necessarily know exactly what the relationship means. What I'm pretty much understanding, or what we did glean from this in the Boruto manga, is that because Momoshiki and Kinshiki were on the same team, we could possibly assume that Kage and Ishiki at one point were also on the same team as well. Now for the Boruto anime, we don't necessarily know exactly what went wrong in that particular situation, but we do understand that they are not together anymore. And in fact, even in the Naruto Shippuden story, we heard nothing about Ishiki Otsutsuki, so it's going to be very interesting for the anime owners to figure out exactly what their relationship could possibly be. Now to the far right, the stone engravings were actually destroyed. Now this right here is very confusing to me, especially to now. I do want to point out we have not necessarily gotten any more information about these two stone engravings in the Boruto manga, so as of right now, no one really has any idea. My original theory is the fact that they're probably dead Otsutsuki members. Now I'm not necessarily going to say that for certain, man, because of course Momoshiki and Kinshiki in theory are also dead. Of course we don't necessarily know exactly what Kinshiki had in terms of other vessels out there. Momoshiki in theory isn't dead, man, because he does have Boruto's vessel. It could possibly mean that two people on the far right actually did die and didn't necessarily have any vessels to potentially reborn into after they were defeated. But let me know what you guys think about these stone faces in the comment section below. But regardless, in this episode we also got the introduction of Jigen as well. Kawaki has pretty much been extremely stringent upon actually naming Jigen as the person who actually gave him the karma seal, and in fact even in the Boruto manga a couple chapters earlier from this point, Kawaki actually told Boruto who gave him the karma seal, and Naruto overheard him. Now in this episode they choose to actually give that up, so that right there was super interesting as well. Now not only that, Sai and Shikamaru were also talking about Jigen and him possibly being the leader of the Kata organization, obviously from the intel from Kawaki, but also some additional intel from what Konohama brought from the blimp that actually crashed. So I really do want to see exactly what comes from this. As you guys know, whenever we get to get more information about an enemy, most likely or more times than not, we're probably going to get to see that enemy in battle very soon. So Boro and Jigen is going to be two of the Kata members that we should be looking forward to in the near future. Now speaking of Boro, Boro is getting completely out of hand. This right here is something completely new from a lot of people in the Boruto series. Boro's relationship to the Infinite Tsukuyomi is extremely weird. It seems like Boro is going to make the same mistake that Madara actually once did, or gonna try to make the same mistake that Madara actually once did. What people don't necessarily understand is that the Otsutsuki members don't necessarily care for them. Now Madara himself wasn't necessarily about worshiping Otsutsuki members, but Boro, it turns out that he actually is. Now this right here is very confusing. Supposedly Boro wants to put everybody in Infinite Tsukuyomi, and you get it, man, because he's speaking to the poor people, and of course the poor people are in the Infinite Tsukuyomi. They themselves are under a genjutsu, and they themselves are living their best life. But what he doesn't understand is that while the god tree is being planted, they're pretty much going to die, man, because the god tree is going to suck them all of all the chakras. So putting them in an Infinite Tsukuyomi wouldn't make any difference if they're going to die eventually. Like, what's the situation here? The Otsutsuki members want the chakra fruit to basically make themselves stronger as well. So Otsutsuki members, they're going to lead you, of course, but they're going to lead you to their own selfish desires. They're only doing this for the chakra fruit. But regardless, it's going to be very interesting to see exactly how far Boro gets with this plan, and I don't necessarily know if the Kata organization are pretty much aligned with this plan as well. Of course, we understand the Akatsuki were pretty much all for this plan, not necessarily the Otsutsuki part, but I think the Kata organization, because they want to make it a little bit different from the Akatsuki, are probably going to have a different overall plan. But now we know why Boro is actually in the Kata organization. But the biggest part of this episode was, of course, Kawaki meeting the Nine Tails, and of course his relationship with Boruto and Naruto growing in this episode. Now this right here was even longer than I thought it was going to be. It was longer than the Boruto manga. They basically talked about a lot in this episode, and he basically detailed exactly how Naruto and Kawaki are much much alike. The Nine Tails, I ain't gonna lie to you guys, he does a very good job of talking. I didn't necessarily think that at first, mainly because of course he's basically going on rampages and terrorizing Naruto's life, but at this particular point they basically made him so soft that you can understand how he'd be a very great narrator, and I'm super excited to see something like that. But regardless, Kawaki's relationship now is absolutely insane. I mean, one of the things that I definitely emphasized when the Boruto manga was going to be adapted to the Boruto anime was that Kawaki and Boruto, they went from pretty much hating each other to calling each other brothers in a very short amount of time. I wanted the Boruto anime to smoothen out that transition, and I think they definitely did that perfectly. Now, of course, they could have done a little bit of stuff better, potentially added some anime only episodes in, but as far as sticking to the manga script, I absolutely love it. And not only that, Kawaki's relationship with Naruto is also a little bit different. Kawaki, even more after a conversation like that, is looking at Naruto as more of a father figure, mainly because Kawaki is thinking that he could potentially be just like Naruto. He could potentially be the Hokage, have everybody respect him, and not necessarily go by the path that was already predestined by him. You could already see Kawaki making some very good parallels between Naruto being born with the Nine Tails and actually acquiring the Karma Seal without his will. I mean, this right here is pretty much damn near basically the exact same, and Kawaki is basically thinking to himself, because Naruto made the best of it, I could pretty much make the best of the Karma Seal as well. But one of the things that I definitely did love in this episode was the character's commitment to actually training. I mean, it's like Kawaki training with Naruto pretty much inspired everybody else to not necessarily fall behind. We already understand that Kawaki is going to be an insane character regardless of if he actually has chakra or not, but Kawaki basically striving to become even stronger now is absolutely insane, and pretty much pushes everybody to go even that much harder. And of course, especially Sada pretty much understands, she's feeling the temperature. Mitsuki with his Sage Mode is stronger than her, Boruto with his Karma Seal is stronger than her, Kawaki flat out is just stronger than her, so that right there just influenced Sada to go even harder. And not only that, Boruto seeing Sada go hard is pretty much influencing Boruto to go harder, and of course because Boruto is doing it, Mitsuki wants to do it, and I think overall it's just going to be a very good thing for Team 7 in general. But one thing that I definitely do have to point out, and I do want to get a little bit serious on this, what the hell is going on with Konohamaru? Where in the hell is Konohamaru? What is he doing? What is this man doing? He's not training. He's not getting any screen time. He's not going on any Kata organization missions. What is this man doing? When we talk about Konohamaru potentially being the future Hokage, things like this pretty much make me understand that it's probably going to be a pipe dream at this particular point. He's definitely not going to be the future Hokage. Let's be honest. Let's stop kidding ourselves. He's not getting no screen time, and if he was getting screen time, I wouldn't even be sure if he'd be training with the screen time. Let's keep it G. Who would he even train with? But I'm gonna end the video before I say something I'm gonna regret. But let me know what you guys think about this episode in the comment section below. As I said, I think this episode was definitely a very good episode. Kawaki got to meet the Nine Tails and also strengthen his bond between Naruto and Sasuke, and also everybody else is training. But let me know what you guys think. It's been your boy Bar B, and we out.
It's a knife.